Hello. Let me get this all set up. Hello. I'm Mark Schreiber. I am one of the senior FAB Learning Fellows from Stanford University, and we had a fellowship where we helped to create a lot of different content for how to embed making into your classroom. And so this summer, really my goal is not to be the talking head, to be the one that tells everything that we know. There's plenty of books and resources, but really my goal is to curate some of that resources, to spark ideas, to be able to give ideas and excitement. And the biggest portion is to create a community. So let me go over a couple things. We'll go over the format today. We'll talk about the next few weeks and what that's going to look like, where you can tune in, ways you can get involved. Then we'll talk about specifically some of the different content that Tony Wagner talked about on his video, because I really think we need to start with making and what is the beginning of making as we start that. So we'll talk about that. And then we'll get into a little bit of a slideshow that I'll be doing at ISTE in San Antonio, and also did at Stanford Fab Learn Conference this year, 2017, or 2016. So anyway, let's get going. Once again, I'm Mark Schreiber. My goal is to create a community. So I'd love to be able to have questions real time as we're doing these webinars. I'd love to be able to have things posted on comments on Facebook, or post comments in the question and answer session area of the Zoom webinar, or even in YouTube once we post in YouTube late. So if nothing else, you can always email info@designcase.co, and we can take comments that way too. So let's get started. First of all, format. The format is we're going to bring in different guests. It's kind of me bringing in my friends and talking about what they're passionate about. And if you listen to Tony's video, a lot of this comes down to passion. This is why we're all motivated. This is why we do the things we do as adults, and this is why we should be doing it with students in our classroom. So we'll be having next week on the 20th, we'll be having Christina in. She's Librarian of the Year from the East Coast, and she's going to be talking about how to make a makerspace for $500. So just a basic library makerspace. How do you get students creating without all the glitzy, fancy laser cutters, 3D printers? We don't need all of that, because it comes down to a creativity mindset. Then we'll also be having some people from the International Society of Technology Education, ISTE, in San Antonio. We'll be doing some of them, talking to some of them in the halls, and just recording some of those conversations during the week of the 27th. And the week after that's 4th of July, so we may have a buy on that week, or we may just have some pre-recorded content. Some of those sessions from ISTE we might post during then, unless we can get somebody that would like to speak on that during that time. After that, we have different people signed up. We have Jackie signed up from New Mexico. She's a great maker educator. She's in the Maker Mentor program. We have Aaron Riley, also a Maker Mentor from Year in the Making, going to be talking about cardboard and art. We have Roy from Year in the Making. He's in Africa, actually, and he repurposes tools and materials to make them into other things. He actually built a 3D printer with old computer parts. Another program that they've done there is the Bitey Blender, where you actually use a bike to turn it into a blender by pedaling. So a lot of great things that we could even use for design challenges as we go. After that, we do have other people. I can't remember right off the top of my head, but we're filling them all up. We even have some guests that are from corporate, like Flybricks. Holly will be joining us, hopefully, to talk about their Lego drone that they released this fall. So anyway, lots of great stuff. My goal is more to curate resources, to give you different things, and kind of a short course of what I would do if I was going to your school to help you all integrate maker education. And speaking of integrating, that's my passion. I love to integrate. I really feel like the academic silos are a little too big. We have these units where we go through science and history and math, and I think making can help us wrap our arms around that and make things a little more real world. So with that, let's talk a little bit about what Tony talked about. And these questions are posted on the classroom, and they're also posted on the Facebook. So as we go, they'll just kind of live post. I've got them timed, so they should be posting as we're talking here. But take a look. Now, what he said was, he said that Western countries tend to be very innovative, but his question, thesis was, is it because of our education system, or is it not because of our education system? Does it just happen because? Kind of in spite of our education system, he says. So he says, the culture of schooling, as we have grown up with it, is radically at odds from the culture of learning that produces innovators in 5 essential respects. 1, celebrating individual achievement. We celebrate individual achievement. You got an A on the test. That's good. But he says companies and innovation, it's a team sport. We do things together. So something to think about. Is that something that we could change in our classrooms? We're also specialists, right? Background was in mechanical and in construction and in technology education, engineering concepts. That was my background. So people come to me and they ask me these specific questions, and I'm the content expert because that's what I went to school for. We have history content expert. People are passionate about this. And so you get into your classroom and you want people to come ask you questions because that's what jazzes you. That's what excites you. That's what makes everything really fun. But what Tony's saying is that we need to be interdisciplinary. We need to actually join ranks with other teachers from different content areas and try to even collaborate in our innovative maker hands-on project-based learning exercises. So we'll talk about that. The culture of school, he says, is about risk, or it's about risk aversion, right? It is. Don't do that because you might get an F. Don't do that. Just do what the teacher needs. Really, I mean, right, we go into a classroom and this first quiz is always the hardest. My first quiz was always the hardest because I didn't know what the teacher expected. Once I got that first quiz back, then I went, oh, I need to study these things. It's all about doing the best that you can. There's actually, incidentally, there's a great article by Money Magazine, I believe, that talks about where did all the valedictorians go. And the short answer, the short thesis, if you read the whole article, is that they've got great jobs. They're in the top tier, but they're not the people that are tending to change the world. So they've got good jobs, they're making good money, but they're not changing the world. And that part of that is because they've always been good at playing the game and doing what's expected. So Tony's saying innovation is what's not expected. So think on that. His fourth one is a culture. Our culture of schools is about passive consumption, and that needs to change. And he says classroom of innovators is all about creating and trying and changing. And finally, we rely on intrinsic or extrinsic motivation as students, even as educators. We rely on extrinsic motivation instead of intrinsic. And so he said innovation requires intrinsic, and that starts with having to play with something that you enjoy, and then to develop your passion for it, and then finally to allow that to give you your purpose. So play, passion, purpose, and that's the name of his TEDx talk. So the question I'm going to pose to you, and if you didn't pay attention to anything, pay attention to it now. Here's the important part. I'll zoom in. Okay, pay attention to this. Here's the question. And this is really the question for the whole PD. This is what we need to do. How will you create space in your classroom to allow for play, passion, and purpose? How we create space for that. We can give worksheets and the students can be quiet. We can even give a three-dimensional worksheet if you may. We can assign a maker hands-on project like a diorama or something, which is good, but did it really help them with what they wanted to do? Did it give them enough openness to be able to do what they want, and you enough control to be able to say, yes, I can actually grade this? So we'll be talking about assessment. Making our assessment is a good thing. We need to understand why it's there. But it's not just about making for making's sake. It's about the process. It's about the pedagogy. It's about the constructivism. That's the early word. Maker is really shorthand for it in the late last 5 years with the maker movement. But it's really constructivism. And constructivism says that by exploring and working with your hands and building and fumbling and tinkering even, you will learn things that you might not have learned if you had given a step-by-step tutorial instruction. So though I like Instructables, if we're just helping students go through a new recipe, are we really teaching them how to cook fully? I cook a lot through recipes. I need to start out with, but later on, I want to go off on my own. I want to make my own creation with the things I've learned before. So that's the question. How will you allow for your students to explore their passions? And this is something to write into the Google Classroom comment. Have a conversation. Once again, it's not just about me. It's about this community. And I'm just trying to make a space for this community. I'm trying to make a space for you all to explore your passions, your purpose, and to play in the process. So as we work with that, I'm going to try to screen share something. I don't know if this will work, but we'll try. If not, we'll call this the end of the video and we'll see you next week. But otherwise, I've got a couple things I wanted to show here for you. So let's see if we can get this to work. Screen share. And screen share this. And let's see. All right, there's this presentation called Tiny CC FAB Int, and that's a Stanford presentation. I'm going to present it here and see if it actually shows up. And one of the things I wanted to look at right away was the resources and links. And this resource link section is the very last one. They're all hot links. If you hover over them, they will actually click on, and you can go to different things. So there's my bookmarks in there. There is a ebook for meaningful making. That's the book that the Fab Fellows wrote back a couple years ago, and it's basically all the different projects and ideas. I only wrote a chapter or two, but there's some amazing stuff in here. This is gold, and it's right there. It's free ebook. And then I've got Year in the Making with mentors where you can ask questions, and then Startup Digest where I curate different maker events and ideas that are happening, around the world really, as we walk through each week. Let me see if we can get it here. All right. Let's see what we can actually get in here. So I'm going to try to present it this way because I'm just not sure if it's presenting the other way. Once again, I'm not afraid to fail. Actually, I'm fine with that. I'm going to learn this and we'll together. So I'm not the expert in this technology yet, but I want to learn. And this is an interesting thing to be able to share. So here you go. So one of them is making a case for integration. And really integrating to me is the point of making, because making just is, it can be this nebulous thing. We throw a pile of parts down in front of people and we say, make something. Well, you need to make something to solve a problem. Every product that's good solves a good good problem. And so we need to find that pain point, and then we need to integrate around it. So if you have a history teacher that's doing a unit and you like electronics or coding, then put them together and make a electronic quilt that using makey and capacitive touch. And when you touch it, or maybe just the regular makey, it'll connect the two circuits and it'll play a sound or play somebody narrating their voice on a quilt that you used with felt squares. Now all the students have this felt squared quilt that when they touch it or their parents touch it, it becomes this artifact for what they learned, and it plays their voice talking about Paul Revere's ride. There's some amazing integration points there. We can work about it. And it really, I feel like making is that glue that holds it all together. A couple different points. We'll be using this presentation multiple different times, but there's one slide on here that says leading making to your school. And there's a way to do it where you have a cohort of individuals doing this. And that's kind of us right here. We have 200 people signed up now, moving up every day for this professional development community this summer. But how do we have that in our own schools? How do we have a cohort that will disrupt the norm and try new things? That's a good thing. Pain points. Once again, we need to find something. We don't just need to add making to bolt it on to something. It can't just be 21st century shop. This needs to be something that changes the style of learning in your classroom. And finally, creating that room even for students to bring themselves to the party, bring their ideas, bring their thoughts. And what that does is it really helps them to become that change agent in your school. We're going to skip through some of the integration. We'll talk about integration later in assessment, but what's the presentation if you don't show your own kids? So you can kind of see it in this picture. If not, go actually look at the presentation by yourself. There's my sweet girls in the front yard in their box car, because that's it, right? My girls could use 3D printers, they could use 3D design program. We have a CNC mill, we have a vinyl cutter, we have more electronic stuff in little bits than we know what to do with a lot of times. And still, when it comes down to it, we run out of tape, because tape is the big thing that they want to use. It's easy, it's accessible, and creativity is not about doing the hardest, most electronic and technological thing. It's about doing things that help with your creativity and bringing students up in that way. So, and then finally, resources and links. If you didn't see it before, it's right here. There's a big light bulb on it. And that's my bookmarks right there. So if you download that file, there's an HTML file that you can download that's actually your bookmark link that you can import into Google Chrome and use it for yourself, just bookmarks that I've saved for the last few years. So I think that's a good thing to be able to look at. All right, let me go back to stop sharing and let's see if I'm still here. All right, well, hopefully that worked. Once we have so many things, here's what I want other than answering that question. I want you guys to ask me or tell me what you want to learn. I have a CNC mill right over here, a tabletop mill. We could talk about mill. We could talk about manufacturing chocolate candy molds with a 3D printer or a CNC mill using food grade epoxy or food grade silicone to actually make those forms, even adding spirulina into it to talk about malnourishment and how do we get nutrients into candy for kids in other countries. We could talk about low-tech water wells and social change. We could talk about using linking and blinking things. We could talk about drones, coding drones, different drone programs, different coding platforms, different robotics platforms. We could talk about design challenges. We could talk about laser cutting. We could talk about templates for laser cutting and box making with laser cutters or with vinyl cutters. We could talk about little bits. We could talk about Arduino. We could talk about conductive ink. We could talk about e-textiles. We could talk about so many different things, and we don't have a ton of time for all of that. But what do you want? I would love to hear what you want, because once again, this isn't about me sitting in our lab talking to you. This is about creating a community. This is about creating a group of other like-minded individuals that are sold out on, or want to be sold out, or want to at least explore what hands-on education could do to really help their students. Because once again, guys, we're all here for the kids. We didn't sign up for an educated job just because we like science or just because we like to make. We don't want to go have a party for ourselves just because we love making this stuff. And sometimes we do. Sometimes I have a little Mark party. I'm like, wow, that was really awesome. Did you see how awesome that was? But really, in the end of it, we came here for the kids. So how do we get kids to learn better? And I've seen this over and over and over again. This is an effective way to help them have more understanding that can hook into these scaffolding that they're creating, so that when they think back to learning, it wasn't just about the information, but it was also about how they did it. I challenge you this. Who was your favorite teacher or favorite project that you did when you were in elementary or middle school or high school? Who was it? I bet you didn't think of, I remember this time that I had this 42 question math quiz, timed quiz worksheets that I had to do daily. That was my most awesome bad grammar project. No, it was probably that you had a chemistry teacher that walked in with a vial of something and a beaker full of something else and poured them in, and they smoked and they exploded, and he got your attention, and then you learned it because you were curious. And curiosity is what drives us. And what can something become? What should something become? That's the question that I think we need to help our students ask. So anyway, next week, $500 makerspace with Christina. Our times, once again, last thing, a little housekeeping. Our times will be all over the board on Tuesdays. We're going to put up some in the AM, some in the PM, some in the evening. Some will be recorded and just posted, not live at all. But these are meant to be at your time. So hopefully you'll be able to join us sometimes, but we figured this way, at least some of you would be able to join us sometimes, and some of you would be able to join us other times. So thank you once again. I'm Mark Schreiber. I will send out some links to you all. Please spread the word. We can have more people. So invite them in. We're just getting started. Thanks. And we'll talk to you all later, okay? If I can figure out how to turn this off. All right, bye now.